Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. This week is going to be out of this world. No, but seriously, the plan for this week is to paint a ton of galaxy palettes, which I have done I think only once before, which was completely unintentional. I fully planned on, after the success of the initial ones, to do more, but I think it's been over a year since I did those, which I always did know if the galaxy palettes went well that they were going to be more of a limited edition situation, considering I do have to paint the galaxies on them, so they do take me more time, but I'm very excited to be doing another round of them, and specifically this week the focus is on the compact palettes. I might do other ones, I'm not sure, but since you guys love the compact palettes so much, I figured it would make the most sense to focus my efforts there, and then if I feel up to painting even more galaxies, then I will look at doing some lids on travel palettes, palette towers, something in that nature, but I guess we will see how the week goes. Although while I'm sitting here, I do actually have a couple of things to show you, because there are a couple of new pencil colors in the line, and honestly these ones might be my favorite pencil colors so far. They're very up my alley, which is why I had to add them. I know a lot of you guys are also into various shades of blue, and so that was always somewhere that I wanted to expand the color line. So we have Sapphire and Aqua joining the presumably permanent lineup, assuming that these are as popular as I'm sure you are going to make them. And with the addition of these colors, because I know in a recent video I asked about product colors for specifically the brush organizer and fine liner storage, I almost couldn't remember what that one was called, but I got so much feedback and interest on the studio vlog where I asked you about the idea of expanding the colors available for those products, and such an overwhelmingly positive response for that it is official. Those products will be available in all of the new colors, including the Aqua and Sapphire. They are going to technically be more of a custom order sort of situation, like you can buy them directly through my website, like in the normal listing where you have possibly previously purchased one of the brush organizers or fine liner organizers in the past. It's just now there's a drop down menu where you can select the color that you want it printed in. And so we're going to try this out to see how it goes, because there's like all of a sudden all of these new colors, and this is like the first wave of them. They are, like I sort of mentioned, going to be more custom order, so it might be a couple of more days like processing time for those, like if you order one of those products in a different color, but I will be working as hard and fast as I can to get those products produced in the colors ordered. But I just wanted to mention that here because I know there was so much interest in the idea of having those products be available in a lot of nice new pretty colors. And yeah, those are available right now. But let's actually get into some galaxy painting. Now, because I print all of the palette pieces in white plastic, the first step for these galaxy palettes was to give it a black base. Normally I would spray paint this, and I'm honestly not sure why I didn't do that, because I have a spray booth now, so it's not even like I can use weather as an excuse, but for whatever reason I just decided to sponge on some black acrylic paint onto the palette lids. This step was mostly to get the edge of the lid black, because I really didn't want to have to worry about really painting that too much later, but I also blended in the black onto the actual upper lid portion as well. Some of them I left a little more blank just so that I didn't have to fight with trying to cover up black on every single design. And for the actual painting portion, I decided to finally try out my wet palette, which honestly I think I've had this thing for probably almost 10 years and I've just never used it, which kind of makes sense because acrylic paint normally isn't really my thing, but I wanted to try it out, bust it out to do these lids, and I will just say right now, this thing is like my new favorite thing. I'm so obsessed with it. I'm probably going to do a whole video on it because I really want to try it out with acrylic wash. But I also feel like I might actually turn into more of an acrylic painter now, because my main complaint with acrylic paint is that it dries out so fast and you feel like you lose half of the paint that you've put on your palette. But of course the entire point of a wet palette is that the paint doesn't really dry out like that, especially when you keep it in blobs and you're using heavy body acrylic or something more along the lines of heavy body acrylic, and this stuff kept my paint perfectly wet the entire time. So yeah, not to like do an entire video on this wet palette, considering I really want to do a separate one, but just had to mention that because I'm really obsessed with that thing now. And I guess I sort of already mentioned this in a roundabout way, but yes, I decided to use heavy body acrylics to paint these galaxies. Same paint that I used the last time I did galaxy palettes, although this time around I was highly considering trying to airbrush them because I thought that might be almost faster. I couldn't really remember how long it took me to paint the previous palettes when I did this, and obviously I want these to be impressive looking and, you know, look nice, but not take me forever to paint, which thankfully I think even with the more complicated galaxy designs or patterns, whatever you want to call them, I think I did manage to keep everything under a half-hour paint job, which I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do because this isn't like the craziest quality paint, I guess you could say. Like, it's decent and it was working really well for these, but for some reason I thought I was going to have to do like multiple layers and wait for things to really dry, but I pretty much just, when I started painting the lid, I just continued to paint and didn't even have to worry about anything like waiting for it to dry. It was drying in time by the time I needed to go back and do layers, and everything was blending in really nicely, and I'm just overall very happy with how these galaxy palettes turned out, and also very happy that they ended up being a reasonable amount of time because I do still want to keep these pretty, you know, in line with what the normal compact palettes cost. You know, I do have to consider my time in pricing these products, and so not having them take me absolutely forever is a very beneficial thing for everybody involved. It means that I have more time to make more lids, and also that I don't have to charge even more because of how much time I'm having to put into each lid. And the other naturally good thing about galaxies is they're quite an abstract, you know, shape paint job. The nebula clouds are pretty much just clouds, and so I don't really have to focus and concentrate too much on like any details or anything. Like I do, it's more of a lighting thing, so you have like lighter areas, darker areas, some having those blend in a little more, like not having super harsh edges everywhere. So overall it's not like a super daunting task for me to be painting all of these lids. I know that the idea of custom like hand painting products and lids seems like possibly a crazy concept to do, to have these like mini paintings on products, which maybe it is, but this is the easiest and most impressive way to get a galaxy, a custom, you know, one-of-a-kind galaxy onto a lid. And yeah, that's what we're rolling with right now. Although, speaking of the one-of-a-kind idea, it's not really an issue right now because these are the first wave of the compact palettes, but something that I have highly considered, you know, because I do know that like I really love the look of these galaxy palettes, and I know a lot of you do as well. Not that I'm gonna like completely switch over to the galaxy, like the pour painting ones are still very much going to be happening. Like you will see, I ended up doing like a wave of those as well at the same time, just because it's easier to resin a bunch at the same time. But something that I have considered doing, and something that's almost going to naturally sort of happen just because there's only so many options for galaxies that I can paint that look appropriate, you know, galaxies and nebulas and all of that sort of space color stuff only sort of appears in certain formations and colors. And so there's going to be a point where I'm going to inadvertently repeat myself, I guess. Like, nothing is obviously going to be 100% a copy of something that I've already done because they are hand painted, and so naturally it's not like I can really copy myself. You know, there's going to be differences somewhere even if I was trying to replicate something. And something that I have considered doing, especially because I'm trying to get into slightly less one-of-a-kind products. Like, I have no choice with the pour painted lids because it's completely out of my hand. You know, however that paint settles and dries is going to be whatever that paint wants to do. But with the Galaxy palettes, I have the possibility, if I wanted to almost make myself specific designs that I then look at replicating it to a point. Like I was mentioning, obviously there's going to be some differences, but I could keep it fairly similar looking, and it would mean that I could have multiples of so many designs. And like I sort of mentioned, it's probably, if I keep on making these, going to sort of inadvertently happen just because there's only so many particular color combinations and styles of clouds that I can create. And I guess I just wondered what your thoughts would be on that, because I know people are probably going to fall in love with one of these galaxies and it's going to be sold out, and so that would also fix that issue. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that, because I'm not sure how important the one-of-a-kind aspect is, especially for the Galaxy palettes. Now it's time to start adding all of these stars. I decided to paint them all first and then splatter the stars on them all at the same time, just because it is like a reasonably messy process. My hand gets covered in white paint splatter, so just having them all done at the same time just seemed like the best possible option. And of course, I'm using my favorite white acrylic ink and toothbrush method to create these stars, which you do have like a reasonable amount of control with this. There's definitely areas that I went like closer to and flicked more paint so that the stars looked more condensed in certain areas, and then of course I also went along all of the sides so there was a nice even covering of stars across the palette lid. I made sure all of the stars were dry before going ahead and resining the lids. This is one of the really nice things with the Galaxy palettes, is that the dry paint wait time is significantly less. Like, I'm not actually sure if I waited half an hour after putting the stars on the lids before I was resining them, as opposed to the pour painted lids are like a full 24 hours. I know a lot of the time when I show resining stuff in videos, people ask about it, and it's just an epoxy resin. The one that I'm using right now is like a tabletop epoxy, but it's just a two-part system that you mix up in even amounts, and then you do want to like make sure you have a culinary torch or something to get rid of the bubbles, but other than that, it's super easy to use. It gives it a really nice, perfect, glossy finish. It's self-leveling, and so in this case it does protect the design of the lids and just makes it overall look really nice and polished. The resin still unfortunately takes the multiple days to fully cure, but here is one of the finished, fully cured lids all put together with the rest of the palette pieces. All of these palettes, of course, are available right now in my shop if you're interested in one of them, and if they do sell out, I will work as hard as I can to restock them as soon as possible. You might want to follow me on like Instagram or Twitter if you are interested in any restocks, because I definitely post about anything there first. The links for all of that will of course be in the description box. And that is everything, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.